Welcome to More Than a Few Words. This is your host, Lorraine Ball. And I want to ask you a question. If you knew what other people thought about you, if you could listen in on their conversations, get feedback, real, honest, direct feedback, would you want it? What about if you could get that feedback from ChatGPT? Have you ever thought of asking it what it thinks of you? Well, I know someone who has, and that person is Michael Buckbee. He's worked at the intersection of marketing and technology for more than 2 decades. Past clients include the Navy, Fortune 100 companies, YC startups, presidential candidates, federal agencies, rock bands, and foreign governments. And today he is co-founder of Noatoa, a service that tracks brand visibility, rankings, and sentiment within AI search services like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google Gemini. Michael, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Lorraine. This is great.
I am so excited to be here because I got to tell you, I've been using ChatGPT for a lot of different things,
Mhm.
and I never thought about asking it about my brand.
Yeah, it's interesting. For decades, people have been Googling themselves to see how they are represented and how their companies are. And it's a new territory to have this in all the AI platforms. Something I really liked was how you framed this at the top, which was, would you like to find out how like lots and lots of people are perceiving you? And that's a lot of what the AI tools are really doing, where there is a lot of, technical details of them, but at some level, they're really just looking for a consensus. Like this is what the internet and all the data sources that the AIs have found. They, boil it all down and then they present it back to you as like, this is what we think of you, Mike. This is what we think of your company.
So when you get that information, because you did that for at first for your company,
Mhm.
were there any surprises? Were there things that you learned or saw that you thought, wow, I didn't know people thought that?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot in terms of, I think as business owners, we always think of like, oh, our competitor is this, our competitor is that. Very often, that is not what other people think, you know? And very often we have a lot of ideas about like, oh, we're going after this market segment. We're going after small business. We're going after, people in this area. And sometimes the rest of the world doesn't think that. And so a lot of the start of Noatoa, my company, was founded out of like trying to just get our hands around not even like, hey, are we being represented the best, but just like what on earth is happening.
Mhm.
So something I encourage people to do is to just whatever service you're using, just see what it thinks of you right now and see if there are any discrepancies. So
Yeah, I I really am curious about how it perceives who my target is. Who am I
mhm.
really talking to? Because that's something that I've been in transition with. And I think this is a really interesting way to approach a branding exercise of getting a gauge on who are you now? Who do you want to be? And what changes do you need to make to get there?
Yeah, like you were very kind to read off my bio. I have worked with some very large companies that have spent, tens if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in doing like a brand panel survey to
Mhm.
find out how they're perceived. And it is really interesting now for, $20 a month, you can go to ChatGPT and find out a lot of the same information, like asking questions like, hey, what are the strengths of my company? What are the weaknesses? A sort of SWOT analysis. That's a great place to start. Something else that comes up a lot with our customers is, and this is something a customer told me, was ChatGPT is now our most popular and least well-trained representative of our company. So
Ooh,
yeah,
yeah.
and it makes sense that like every day people are asking ChatGPT like, hey, does this company, do they do business in California? Are they HIPAA certified? Can they help me with this problem? And a lot of times those, uh, people talk about SEO and search professionals. Those are a lot of questions that were not really on SEO's radar, where for a long time, the SEO plan was always, we're going to look for like really high traffic,
Mm.
high keyword volume searches that people are doing. We're going to write an article that's just a little better than our competitors, and then hopefully we'll get some traffic from it. Now, that's low intent traffic. It's not buying traffic. And AI has really changed that, where a lot of those types of questions, and I'm sure you've experienced this, are just answered directly in AI. And it's a new world, and we need to change our strategies. So.
It's funny because I ran a content shop for not an SEO business. And so I've spent years answering questions, and I am so excited that all of those questions are finally paying off. I mean,
Yeah.
they paid off in search. They paid off in getting into niches where, you know, we would answer very obscure questions. But you're absolutely right. If you've got that kind of niche content, you got to beef it up. And if you don't, you better start creating it.
Yeah. So something I recommend is, so, you know, we're talking about like looking for issues with your company. There's a term, which is hallucinations, which is the AIs make stuff up. And oftentimes what that really is that there's like a point A and a point B, and someone asks a question that's in between those two things. And so the AI is trying to be helpful, trying to be friendly, and it sort of makes up the in between piece. And so, you know, that might be misinformation about your company that costs you business. Well, it is very easy for you to write an article that directly addresses that, fills in that point, and addresses that hallucination. But if you don't go looking for it, you're never going to know it's there. You're never going to know that, you know, you're losing business to these things. So.
Absolutely. And you touched on something else, and I want to circle back around to it. And that was this idea of not really knowing who your competitors are.
Mm-hmm.
And how have you used this same technique, maybe to stalk your competitors, learn a little bit more about what they're doing, maybe do an end run around them?
Sure. So in the same way you can ask questions about your own company, you can ask that about any of your competitors. And you can ask both, you know, how they're perceived, what people like the most about them. But, you know, maybe even better, find out weaknesses, areas where maybe, you know, they have a great product, but the support isn't so good, or they have, you know, great marketing, but they don't have all the features that you need.
Cool. So really, this is just an extension of ChatGPT, bringing it into your organization, putting it to work in different ways, and looking beyond just the, hey, write a blog post about. If I
Oh,
was going
absolutely.
if I was going to take this to the next level, if I wanted to get a little geeky, you know, moving on beyond just asking questions, are there more technical questions I could ask that maybe would help me or the SEO company that's doing my work move in the right direction?
Sure. So, on our website, we have this thing that I wrote called the Biscuit Framework, which is, it's not, it's agnostic. It's not about us. It's just like, hey, here's a way, a mindset to have a way to think about what's happening. And it starts with some like real basic technical stuff of, well, you know, in the same way Googlebot has to index your site in order for you to show up in Google. If you want to show up in ChatGPT, you have to make sure ChatGPT's bot can index your site. And a challenge is that instead of just one or two of these, there's 24, you know, and that's just a lot to deal with. And so once you can be indexed, you want to make sure you're writing the right information that answers the questions. We make assumptions. You know, an assumption we make is that people are still people in all this, like beyond any of the technology. They're just trying to get things done. So whether they type a couple words into Google, whether they type a couple words into ChatGPT, you need to be matching that intent. So you need to have some empathy. You need to be thinking about what your customers and prospects are trying to get done. And you need to write content that matches that and that's helpful. So.
Awesome. Well, Michael, this has been really eye-opening. It is definitely a different way to think about ChatGPT, and every day it seems like there's something new.
Yeah,
So
it's moving fast. So,
it is. So thank you so much for being a part of the show.
oh, thank you. This was a delight. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So.
Well, I am going to encourage anyone, if you guys are curious about what ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity think about your business, head over to Knowatoa, KNOWATOA.com. Put your site name in and see what comes up.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if you're looking for other conversations just like this one, hop over to morethanafewwords.com. Subscribe so you never miss a single conversation. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words. Thanks for listening.